Hey guys, I'm Steve Karma and I'm coming to you from HQ1, that is Hope Church Lancaster, but I'm in the Dulham office. Sorry, Kath, sorry, Sarah, I've kind of hijacked your office, but I've got an interview with a guy called James The Rock Baker, and he's going to be competing for 2 world records. So we're going to be asking him questions about training. We're going to be asking him questions about nutrition. We're going to be asking him questions about how he's adapted during this whole coronavirus lockdown. We are also going to be asking him where he gets inner strength from. Where does his emotional and psychological and just kind of inward spiritual strength come from? But before we do that, guys, I'm asking you to smash that thumbs up button. I'm asking you to share. And we've got a video just with a little promotion on who he is and what he's all about. Let's run that Zoom tech.
Well, that is a lot harder than it looks. So far I've been using my car, it's about 1.5, 1.6 tons. The van here is probably between 1.7 to 1.9 tons. It's got some heavy stuff inside it as well. For the world record event, it needs to be a minimum of 1.5 tons. So this van is excellent practice, excellent training for what it is that I need to do. I've just done quite a number of sets, and I tell you what, even though the ground is flat, this is going to be really challenging. 26.2 miles is what we're aiming to pull for. The world record is 21 miles. At least with all the things that are going on with COVID-19, we're going to look to push the date back from June and July, hopefully back to the autumn, September, October. But yeah, we're going to have to get some more strength into these quads, into my calves, into my cardio, and got to do plenty more of this. Yes, all good fun, and stretching ourselves, that's what we like to do. And yeah, pulling a vehicle for 24 hours to break a world record. Crazy wazy. It's going to be interesting doing 26.2 miles pulling this thing. But I suppose the good thing is that the track is going to be flat, and I can see how much this is going to challenge my legs and challenge my cardio. So I need to keep doing this, need to do more of this, need to do some more cardio, some more strength training, particularly in my quads, my calves, and I'm going to absolutely beast this world record this year. Really looking forward to it. Time to do a few more. Ha!
Hey guys, that's us back. So I've got James The Rock Baker with me. According to Facebook, it says you're actually watching this event. So James, where are you? Let's have you in with me. As the Zoom tech sorts that out, let me just give some shout outs. Emma Sharples, yo, how you doing, Emma? Sue Murphy, JJ Fox, Margaret Layton, Amy and Amy's mum are watching. Janet Henry, I think Janet Henry used to be my primary school teacher. James, let me tell you something which you may not know about me. I was actually expelled from primary school. Can you believe that? And well, and I was suspended from school on my first day of secondary school, and I was expelled from secondary school. I was accepted back on a contract. I breached the contract and I was expelled again. So that's the kind of guy you're talking to.
That sounds great.
So James, because some of these guys know you, some of these guys don't know you. James, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself? So firstly, how have you spent Bank Holiday Monday? Have you just been chilling like a villain, or have you been cleaning? And tell us just a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, well, for today, I have had a pretty lazy day, eaten plenty of chocolate and done some housework, played with the girls. I'm married, beautiful wife Samantha, and we've got two girls, a 1-year-old called Layla and a 7-year-old called Holly. So yeah, a bit about my background. I am an ordained minister within the Free Methodist Church, so I'm a pastor. I once was a very passionate atheist. I used to hate God, hate church, hate anything to do with it. So the fact that I am involved in church means that if I can be saved, anybody can be saved. So I was a good boy at school, so I probably wasn't like you, Steve. But when it came to anything church related, I was like a different person altogether. So for me, I became a Christian about 17 years ago. And that was the biggest change and the most defining change in my entire life. Everything I do now has come as a result of making that decision those years ago.
So, I was going to say, I've got a kind of philosophy that I got all of that stuff out of the way early. So where you might have a midlife crisis, like buy a Harley Davidson or, I don't know, compete for 2 world records, I got all that out of my system. So not that I'm defending my wayward past. Nanette Wilkinson asked if that was Great Eccleston that you were training in. Can you confirm or deny?
We're actually living just up the road on the same road as Great Eccleston Free Methodist Church. So it's not classed as unnecessary travel because I can literally walk less than 50 meters to the car park. So I pulled the van there and pulled it back.
Which is really good. I mean, I did some training this morning. I just did shoulders and legs, and I watched the promo video, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel really humiliated. I don't think I'm going to actually mention the fact that I lift. I do, not as much as you, obviously, but there you go. James, just before we kind of continue, how did you get the nickname James the Rock Baker?
Somebody called Steve Karmer coined the phrase. I like that. I love The Rock. Dwayne Johnson I'm a huge fan. I love his films. I love watching him work out. Like, he is a beast.
He is a beast.
If you look at some of his videos, his training videos, he gets up at 4:30 every morning, does cardio, does weights, and then he does his daily work. I'm inspired because I try and get to the gym as early as I can. It opens at 5:30. Obviously right now I can't get out to the gym. So I've got some bad habits at the moment due to the lockdown, sleeping in a bit more, but I try and get the workout in before the day. So The Rock, ROC, redeeming our communities.
We're going to talk about redeeming our communities. So tell us about The Rock. Tell us about the charity that you belong to and how this dream, and I'm not saying that in an offensive way, how this dream began or journey or however you describe it.
Yeah,
I will get back to your comments, guys. Harry is watching, Bill DeMay is watching. Guys, he's going to be giving you some tips on nutrition and exercise. So, and I will test. But The Rock, because we're friends, I can call you that. How did the journey begin?
So I'll tell you about ROC first. So ROC stands for Redeeming Our Communities. It's a Christian-based charity. It's based in Manchester, but the site's all across the UK. So I came across ROC probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and while I was working in Blackpool for a housing association, some of their staff came over to do something called a ROC conversation. Ended up connecting with them, learning more about what they do, and a gardening project I was involved in that originally started with Valley Church, where we originally started the team, turned into something with the housing association, and then eventually we had the opportunity to move it to Redeeming Our Communities, because there was the sort of financial breakdown years and years ago, obviously, where everything sort of went a bit belly up, and the council and the government were really struggling for funding, so we needed to move the project to a charity. At which point, this was just the dream, because it started off in a Christian environment, and now it's able to flourish in a Christian environment. So I am effectively, I'm the project development manager for the Rock Garden project. So it's based largely in the Northwest now. It started off in Blackpool, but it's now expanding across Preston, Manchester, Nelson, and it's got room for further growth as well. And effectively what I'm trying to do is, well, I'll just give you the sort of the brief aims of the project. We're trying to help people. There's two sides to it. There's a volunteer side, and then there's a garden service side. So the volunteer side is trying to support people who are unemployed, build their skills and confidence to help them get closer towards employment. So we teach them how to use garden tools and equipment like lawnmowers, hedge cutters, trimmers, and we want them to become proficient gardeners. We then work with the Housing Association and the council to support tenants that are struggling with overgrown gardens. So the two go hand in hand. Volunteers who are looking for work, blitzing an overgrown garden for a resident that can't afford it or can't manage it themselves. And then the other side of it, if a resident wants regular maintenance, we can then provide a proper, like a professional service that actually we've created employment for 6 people in the last 12 months. Last year, we started off with 3 people with about 25 customers. At the end of the year last year, we had over 200 customers, and we had 5 part-time staff, gardeners. And this year, we've just hired an administrator, and we've just done some fundraising to buy a second van, and we've got the van, we've got the tools, well, about to get the tools once we can get them delivered. And we're about to hopefully employ some more staff because the garden side, the business side has grown. And so all the things I'm doing, it's trying to support the charity, trying to help those who are out of work, trying to help those in the community that are struggling. And there's a lot of science behind the reasons why antisocial behaviour and other things, we're trying to tackle those issues. And so, yeah, it's partly what I'm doing.
Is that another dig at me, the antisocial behaviour? Let me just tell you about my experience with gardening. I tried to grow a cannabis plant once, and my mother found it, and she chucked it out. I tried to tell her it was a tomato plant because they look remarkably similar. But let me just add to the guys who are watching, that was all BC. I'm a different person now. But if we wanted a rock Lancaster, and we weren't intending to talk about this, but we might as well, because we're not really sure what we are supposed to be talking about until we start. I am keeping an eye on the comments as well, and your wife is watching, and she says you are a hunk. Well, whatever you think, Sam, he looks pretty easy on the eye. Yeah, if we wanted a rock Lancaster, what would we need to do? And what benefit would it bring to us?
Well, I mean, the garden project is only just one of a lot of different projects. So Rock normally starts off with something called a Rock Conversation. It's an event that we've been running all over the country. We've actually run about 30 of them in the last 2 or 3 months. There's quite a lot of them. They're designed to bring together all the statutory services, including like the police, emergency services as well, the council, the mayor, but then also your key players in the community. So your local church leaders, your community leaders, get them all in a room together, which you can't really do right now, but get about 150, 200 people together, and we celebrate the good, that we identify what is already working in that area. And then as we do that, we start to discover what people can offer as an asset, what can they give or what can they provide. And then from that as well, you discover what the gaps are. So people start to see, actually, there's an issue in the community with this. And then everybody in the room starts to think creatively. And as a result, there's an action group that's formed. So it's not just an empty consultation. Sometimes I've been to meetings where everybody takes notes, but nobody does anything after the event. Rock puts together a team leader, a group. The group could have like 50 or 100 people part of the action group, but it means that action happens, And then if there's a particular need in the community, if Rock has a project, run with that. If not, then between the great minds in the room, get it running. And often for churches, that's a great way to be right at the forefront of leading on the community. because your building could be a resource, your staff could be a resource, your volunteers could be a resource. And then again, it's the message of hope that supersedes all of that going into the community on top. So yeah, conversation will be a good start.
That sounds really good. We're going to do that. I just had a quick look. Samantha is calling you the Hulk. We call him the Rock now, Sam. I'm sorry about that. We do.
It's a green T-shirt, isn't it? It's the green T-shirt. It's a gardening T-shirt.
Oh, is that what it's about? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody ever identifies with this, but the more gardening I've been doing, the more green my clothing has become. So.
Yeah, well. I kind of like green. I like greens and browns. Jane Safari said that she was involved in something like this in London, which is pretty cool. And I think it's good for urban areas. And let's talk about your training. So where did the dream or the journey, or how do you describe it? What do you even call it? And what is it? What are you trying to achieve? Did you just buy the van for the Rock so you could go and pull it around places? So
I just can't fuel, so we just bought a harness and we're going to pull the van everywhere with all the tools in it. That's it. Cheapskate. No, we're not really. It's a bit crazy, but every year I'm trying to do a fitness challenge to raise money for the charity, because we're trying to support obviously the people that we're doing that with. And in order to do that, funding is a massive part of, helping charities go forward. So the last few years I've done half marathons. Last year I did my first full marathon. And this year I just thought, instead of doing the long hours that it takes practicing for a marathon, every Saturday you do a 3 or 4 hour run or something like that, and you've got to eat right for it all the time. And then through the week, you still got to put in 20, 30 miles. I thought, do you know what, James? Let's just make this a bit easier and have a look on the Guinness World Record site. I thought, do you know what? It'd be great if we could do like a vehicle pull. And all the big vehicle pulls are like super heavy vehicles. And like, I just don't know if I could do that. But my brother-in-law, John, we saw this title for the furthest distance pulling a vehicle in 24 hours as an individual, and furthest distance pulling a vehicle in 12 hours as a team of up to 12 people. So I just went for it, applied, and then started to realize what on earth we've actually done. But I just believe that we can do it. I think if we train right and we go for it, we could smash this. But the other thing that changed was the original records have actually been broken since we applied. So the challenge has actually grown. So again, I thought this was easy, because the 24-hour record with one person was only, I think it was only about 2.1. Yeah, it was 2.1 miles. I thought 24 hours pulling a vehicle for 2.1 miles, we should be able to do that. And then somebody over Christmas time, actually got broken the year before, but they only updated it over Christmas. He broke it 10 times the amount. So it's now 21.1 miles. So we're back in the position of, James, you've got to do a marathon, but with a vehicle strapped to your back. So we're going to make
Sorry. Let me just cut you off. Did you hear that, guys? They are planning to do a marathon with a vehicle on their back. I'm just going to let that sink in. I'm going to say it one more time. They are planning on doing a marathon with a vehicle strapped on their back. And he's going to be working with his brother-in-law. Now, James probably knows the Bible as well, but Cain and Abel, that didn't really work out well. But anyway, back to you.
Well, John is my brother-in-law. So Jesus gave the nicknames to James and John as the sons of thunder. So me and John are the sons of thunder. Jesus is he's got a sense of humour if he's calling his crew that way. So we're going to take that name as well. So the Rock and Sons of Thunder. So basically we thought we've got to go for this. The team world record also got broken by the British Army just before lockdown. So the team one again was a short one. It was about 4 or 5.
James, I'm going to have to give a shout out. I'm an ex-forces guy. Come on, lads. Good on yous. I hope you get smashed though, but good on yous. Back to you, James. Sorry.
Yeah, they had, I was watching some of the video that they did for it. They had 3 troops where they brought a team of 3 or 4 from each of the troops to make a team of 12. They had 4 pulling the vehicle at one time and then rotated every few hours. So again, it was about 5 miles and we thought, yeah, we'll smash this. Well, it's currently 47 miles in 12 hours. So we are currently recruiting a quality team. So we already have some of our gardeners who are part of our rock team in Blackpool. But we've also, so John and I are training. I'm training at Fortitude Fitness in Polton. So big shout out to those guys. And John's training at JD Gym in Preston. So we've got a few friends they're going to come and join our team to help us on the challenge. But yeah, we discovered that, like, in terms of training and doing something like this, it's not your usual sort of set of training. So it's technically a strongman event because pulling a vehicle.
So can I ask you, because is that kind of that's a segue into my next question? What does training and nutrition look like for an event like this? And with Corona and the lockdown, what does training look like now?
Yeah, so in terms of training for an event like this, most vehicle pulls are classed as strongman events. So they're usually like the big highlights. You have a big heavy truck and you pull it at the end, and then that's a big crowd pleaser. But the difference is the vehicle is not super heavy. So I know like 1.5 to 2 tons is heavy, but it's not heavy compared to like pulling a bus. The hardest part of this is the endurance. So we thought, actually, to help us focus our training, we booked ourselves into a novice strongman competition. So as long as, lockdown comes away and we can go out and do this, it'll be in June. So we're going to go to Chaos Gym in Preston, and we're going to take part in our first strongman competition. And again, a lot of the events are exercises which are going to help us in our training. So we've got to train our back, lower back especially, shoulders and legs primarily, but obviously you've got to train your whole body.
So what does the training look like? So I'm guessing deadlifts, I'm guessing squats. I mean, yeah.
A lot of deadlifting. So for the strongman competition, we've got a deadlift 160 kilo for reps, which again is a lot harder than it sounds. We're both classed as lightweight because we're under 100 kilos. So I weigh about 91 kilos. So I've got a bit of room to play. John is a bit lighter, but he's pound for pound a lot stronger than I am in his upper body. Although I can beast John with my legs. I'm sure you'll love me saying that. But again, like squatting, anything like that, it's just building resistance in your legs. So for the vehicle, you've got to have strength to push it, but then you need conditioning to keep it going. So when the lactic acid starts to build up in your muscles and you start to get fatigued, it's at that point we need to train ourselves up to and through that barrier, and then how to recover from that.
So pre-corona, what did training look like? How many days a week? How long were you doing it? And what was your nutrition like?
Well, John and I have both been trying to train for about 5 days a week, 2 days rest. Obviously in the gym, we can do big compound heavy lifts. So your compound lifts are your deadlifts. So they work your legs, your back, your arms, your squats, again, big compound lifts, again, your back, your legs, your core. One of the best exercises was weighted sled. So pulling the sled, pushing the sled, there's no wheels, so it stops when you stop.
I was in the gym over Christmas and I saw a big guy in a red suit doing that.
Was that us? Because we were we were riding the sled. We wanted to put on an extra 100 kilos, so we just decided to sit on it and then pull each other in the gym. That was fun.
Clearly, you missed my Father Christmas reference. I'm just too quick. I'm like lightning. Okay, so 5 days a week, 2 days
Yeah,
off, compound lifts mainly. Tell me about nutrition. Are you eating
yeah.
out of house and home?
Yeah, so
What were you eating?
so from November to December, we went through a bulk stage. We need to build size and weight, and so to do that, you've got to eat lots of carbohydrates, lots of protein, and lots of fiber. So we're trying to cut down fats, but also having more calories than what you would naturally burn in the day. So eating for us is about 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day, which is great. I love eating. I could eat everything. So again, having to eat about 6 meals a day, eating every 3 hours. You can't leave much more time than that, because every 3 hours you're building muscle. So cracking workout, break down your muscle, eat like crazy, get the nutrients into your body. But then I think I was bordering about sort of 96, 97 kilos. So I was about 15 stone. So just after Christmas, a great time to go on a cutting phase. So trying to strip back fat while keeping muscle mass. So I've had to eat about 200 grams of protein a day and keep that up, because it's a gram of protein for every pound that you weigh-ish, while still working out like crazy. So having less calories than what I would normally have. So really like hungry 10:30 till 12, and then just having what you need is horrible. I want to go back to the bulk stage now.
So tell me about lockdown. So like clearly it wasn't in your plan for a global viral pandemic, or it might be, we just don't know. So the pandemic came along and we went into lockdown. Psychologically, that would have been quite a big blow, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But what does training look like now, and what does nutrition look like now? I mean, I went to the supermarket a couple of weeks ago, and they sent me away unless I was a frontline worker at 8:30. And then, as I walked away, I realized, as a pastor, I am a frontline worker, apparently. But I thought maybe there are people who are a bit more frontline than me. So I thought I'd let them go. So what does training and nutrition look like now? And you know, talking to gym rats or those who just want to get back in shape, use this time wisely, you know, or seeing the psychological benefits of training. Guys, training is like a natural high, okay? So you know, it's something which we would really encourage you to do. It's one of the ways in which you can increase and boost your well-being. So we're in lockdown, and you might not be training for 2 world records, but that's no excuse. So James, tell us, what are you doing training wise? What are you doing nutrition wise now?
So training wise first, the biggest difference is I can't do the big compound lifts because I just don't have a squat rack or a bench or a bar, and I don't have the weights. So I tried to compensate to begin with by visiting somebody's farm just before the lockdown. Picked up an axle with wheels, some tires, some big tractor tires, and some massive stones as well, weighing over 100 kilos. So I can do some resistance training with them, which is good, but again, it's not ideal. The biggest difference is I've gone towards more conditioning. So I've taken up like a freeletics course. It's body weight exercises, but it doesn't leave any prisoners. It's designed to help strip back excess fat and to condition. So it's not necessarily going to build strength. So the compound lifts break down your muscle fibers in more severity, so that you can build them and become stronger and bigger. Whereas I think actually the training now is actually going to be better for the endurance side of what I've got to experience. So longer workouts, harder on, you know, the muscle, because you're having to hold stretches for longer, having to do certain exercises for longer. So, and then nutrition, I've just tried not to eat. It was all out of house and home, because We've got a little Corona cupboard with all our long life shelf stuff on it. But I have had Huel. Huel is food that you can put in a shaker. And
sorry, James, that's not a word from our sponsors. Other meal replacement supplements are also available.
Sorry. Oh, they're going to love me for saying that, because they actually sent me a whole load of Huel as well. I said, we're doing a world record. Could you help sponsor us and provide some nutrition? And they said, yeah, here's 4 packets of Huel. So that's going to last us if we end up, you know, the supermarkets go down. The kids are just going to have to get used to eating Huel. But no, seriously, just having good, well-balanced food, trying not to have too, you know, unhealthy stuff, and making sure I'm eating lots of protein. So ordering, we get, again, I'm not going to sort of over-brand stuff, but order in protein in bags.
Do you know, it's okay. It's okay. Who do you use? I'm taking tips here.
Well, if I can get somebody to get me a referral and get me some money off as well, I use My Protein. So hit me up later. I'll give you
bodybuilding. I use Bodybuilding Warehouse, but there you go. Other food supplements and training supplements are also available.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
so let's talk about inner strength. I mean, I could talk about this all day, and I'm also looking at comments, so I'm kind of going backwards and forwards. Big shout out to Laurie. Big shout out to Anad Gill. We'd love to have you in on this Zoom call, but we don't know you, and you could be a very nice person. You could also be a complete nutbag. So we don't know you, but hit us up with a message. Let's have a conversation. We might have you in another time. Brian Cunningham from my hometown of Killy, Kilmarnock. Did you know I grew up in Scotland, James? Did you know that? I grew up in Scotland.
You're full of surprises. Full of surprises.
Well, I am full of surprises. Yeah. Let's talk about inner strength. So clearly, it's going to take a level of inner strength anyway to be doing something as crazy and, may I say, commendable, because it is pretty awesome. And we as hopesters are wanting you to succeed, even if it means beating the armed forces, unfortunately, because but we want you to succeed. But psychologically, not only did you have the world record to deal with, you've got young kids, as you said earlier, but we are in a global pandemic. Let's talk about emotional and psychological and spiritual and inner strength. How have you been, and what has helped you stay on point inwardly? And I'm looking at the comments as we speak. I'm not ignoring you.
No, that's fine. It's a great question. I think for us as a family, during the first 2 weeks of lockdown, we treated it like the Easter holidays came early. We had a really good staycation. We saved money on travel. We've not used much petrol or anything like that. And it's just been quality time with our girls. But obviously we're missing a lot of those friendship connections. We had to cancel quite a lot of meetings that we had. We had a few people planning to come around for food and things. So we've done a few Skype calls, a few Zoom calls, a few things like that. And that's been fine. It's been hard, obviously not seeing close family, not worked out with John and see John as much usually. Same with my mum and others. And if you're coming in late, John is his training partner, but also his brother-in-law. Yes, sorry, that's a good point. I love working out with John because he's the most encouraging guy. He's always pushing you to do more than what you think you can do. So yeah, it's a great workout partner. But yeah, I think for me, I think one of the hardest things in the last few weeks is trying to just juggle it all. So from a rock point of view with Redeeming Our Communities, I'm effectively running it like it's a small business that I own. That's part of the charity, but I run it locally. So I've got budgets to look after, I've got staff to look after, we've got work and customers, and we've got to juggle all these things. But then having 2 young kids at home, which demand your attention. What age? Say again, Steve? Sorry, what are the ages? 7 and 1. So Holly, who's 7, she's easy, fantastic. Layla, she is wired. all the time. But Sam is also a key worker as well, so she's a primary school teacher. Thankfully, she's not had to go out and do too much work. They've been able to balance it within the other staff. But at the same time, it's trying to find time for making sure that we both can work. And like, I get distracted so easily. So I need like a couple of hours at least just to sit down and get focused. And so I think for me, my emotional tank has probably been the most impacted, because I have to focus a lot more on the tasks that I'm doing, while also trying to give out, you know, love and kindness and patience, and being a dad and being a husband in this situation. You know, these updates that we hear every day, I've been watching the BBC News updates every day. Like, I've never looked at the BBC app as much as I ever have done now. And from an emotional point of view, you could be a wreck just looking at how many deaths there are, how many new cases there are, not just in this country, but across the world. And I think for me, like, if I'm emotional, I've got to deal with that. I've got to work with it. But I want to be strong for my family, and I want to be strong for my team. Like, to lead through this, I think, is what we need to do, rather than try and motivate through this. I think if...
Can I just say, I don't mean to interrupt, but just to point that, you know, like, real strength is strength within the home. You know, I remember hearing this once, and it really spoke to me. It was saying that the people who should respect you and love you the most are those who know you the best, because, and that is so true. At the end of the day, at one point, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks, but those who truly know you, I know me personally, some people think I'm much better than I actually am. And some people think that I'm a lot worse than I actually am. But the truth of it is, to know that the people around me, you know, particularly wife and kids, love me and respect me is really, really important. So I'm just sticking that out there, because I just think it's a great point that needs to be kind of underlined. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things that Paul talks about in Book of Ephesians. You know, how can a man lead his church, or lead, you know, the church he's responsible for, if he can't first lead his own family, or words to that effect? You know, the man lays down his life to love his wife, like Christ laid down his life to love the church. And you know, charity begins at home, but so does leadership. And actually looking after your family, leading them well through a crisis, whatever it is, you know, forget the coronavirus. Like, every family has its own crisis at least once a month. Either we run out of money because we run out of the, you know, what we need to eat at the end of the month, or, you know, what we're going to do, or, you know, the crisis of being late for something, or a deadline's going on, or it takes your focus away. Like, we all have crises in our life. I think the coronavirus, it will either exaggerate some of those, or it will help us work through some of those things. And every family is different. Some families are set up really well, some are broken. And during this time, there's no one family that's the same, and you can't compare. You just got to do your best. And I think for us, I personally want to give my family hope. I don't want to look like I've despaired, and especially when I'm leading my team, I don't want to look like, you know, the fact is, I don't have all the answers, and a leader should be able to admit that. Otherwise, you're motivating people. You're telling everybody, it's all right, don't worry everybody, it's fine. But it's not fine. You know, we're going through a global pandemic and people are losing their lives. Like, we need to acknowledge that, and then lead through that, which means that we then need to work through what do the practical steps require us to do. So for our team, like with Rock, I've been having sort of weekly meetings with them on Zoom and just updating them on where we are, but also getting their feedback, hearing their thoughts and suggestions. Some of them are a lot wiser than I am. And as a result, we're doing this together. But my role as the leader is to bring us together. You know, we can't do it face to face, we can do it in other ways. And as a result, I believe that we've got an amazing team. Our family's doing well. And if we just keep pressing on, we'll be fine. And even if the coronavirus causes us to lock down for 12 months, pray against that.
Don't say that.
No, but the fact is, though, we don't know how long it's going to be. And if we just believe that it's going to be over next week, we've got to wake up. And part of that is to acknowledge things aren't as we want them to be, but we're going to continue to do what we know is the right thing to do. And that's to love one another, support one another, give people hope, give people the opportunity to have their voice, and to believe that the future is going to be better than it is right now. And I think with that, you can go anywhere. So
let me just say, big shout out to Paul Campbell, Fowler, who's watching from Canada. Big shout out there. As I looked over, I saw he was watching. Big shout out. And your wife said he's the best. My wife might be watching too. So I want to wake up with you, baby. See, hey, I love you too, sweetheart. I love you too. So okay, talk to me practically, emotionally, psychologically, practically. What do you do? And like, what can we do? Like, the easy answer would be Jesus. But even if that is your go-to answer, you're going to have to unpack that. But in the midst of that, what are the practical things you are doing to stay on point? Guys, we're going to ask this question, and then what we are going to do is we're going to show a video of James. He not only runs a non-profit organization, he is not only a church leader, he's not only competing in 2 world records. I've got a bit of an inferiority complex right now, but anyway, he also writes songs and plays songs and worship. We're going to do that, and we're going to give you the opportunity to ask all of your own questions. So we're going to be doing that as we show the video after he's answered this question, but we're also going to try and phone up his brother-in-law and harass him live. And we're not sure how that's going to work. So give me some practical things. How do you psychologically and emotionally stay on point for your family and for your organization, Rock, and personally too?
Yeah, I think to answer that by first saying, I think, you said Jesus is the easy answer. I actually think it's probably one of the hardest answers, because I think the natural feeling that I and many of us have is to try and do it in our own strength. And so I think for me, practically, I need to acknowledge I can't do it, and I need to turn to prayer as often as I can. Ask God for help, ask God for strength. I think practically as well, making sure that I've got time to just process. For me, processing is often talking to somebody. I often dialogue a lot better than I do sort of internal monologue. And when I process with people, it helps me share my thoughts and my feelings. People do it in different ways. They might journal, they might do it in a different way. But for me, it helps me get it out. And sometimes I think when I start struggling emotionally, I don't tend to cry much. I just get wound up, like really frustrated. I don't know if anybody feels like that.
No.
No.
No. Hey, not even slightly.
No.
I hope my wife's not watching.
And I think as soon as I start to recognize that in myself, the way I try and snap out of it is I just have to be humble and show some form of humility. And that's just to say sorry. And sorry is the hardest word, but it's the word that will make a massive difference, especially to those that are close to you, because they tend to see it more than anybody else does. But at the same time, it's making sure that I'm honoring God. So for me, it's God first. He's the one that I check all my thoughts and feelings through, that filter. Because when there's nobody there, I will still try and do the right thing. It's not just appearances, it's doing the right thing from the inside. Because I know that God sees my heart more than anything else. And yeah, I know if I honor God, he will honor me through all sorts of different ways. And even during this time, we've seen answers to prayer for practical things. And yeah, like in our own strength, it just would have fallen through half the things that have happened. But as a result, there's been more opportunities when we've actually submitted ourselves humbly to God. And then when we do that, we can submit ourselves humbly to our friends and family. And then from there, you've got a better relationship with the people around you. For me, that's where it starts. And through that, Bible reading can help, or audio book, going through a walk, socially isolated. Time, just a process.
Yeah, that's really good. Who's Pam Baker? Is that your mum?
That is my mum, yeah, she's on.
Your mum is watching. Big shout out to Pam Baker. John Townley is also watching. Big shout out to John Townley. And guys, we are going to play a piece of music. This is James himself. He's going to be singing, and we're going to put that on for you. If you've got any questions, get them in the comment section. So type. If you text me, we might phone you up and you will get to go live, because we're a bit crazy like that. If you phone James, if you text James, he might be able to do it as well. The audio might completely suck. So we don't know. We've not tried this, because that's the kind of people we are. So we're going to go to this song, and then we are going to move to a question.
Just before you go to the song, let me just say that this was recorded for our church at home. So this was one of our service songs on Sunday. So our incredible production team did put words and stuff to the bottom of it. So it's not just me having a jolly in our front room. This was to serve our church on Sunday, and it seemed to go really well for Easter as well. So enjoy.
James, can I say there's nothing wrong with having a jolly? I think my neighbours would have called the police. In fact, they've probably called the police on me singing at the top of my voice at various times in the day. But I think the police have probably got better things to do. But James the Rock Baker is going to be rocking out, and then we're going to take your questions. See you in a bit. Over to you, Zoom Tech.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my truth till I met you. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Your freedom, now your freedom is all that I know. Let's lift it up. The old made new. Jesus, when I met you, you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Let's declare this together, the truth about who we are in Jesus and what He's done for us. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, the chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you called me a savior.
Okay, James, guys, if you've got any questions, make sure you get it in the comment section. I'm just going to begin with a quick fire round. So I don't want you to think about this. I just want you to answer Indian or Chinese.
In Chinese, did you say?
Just a quick fire round. Talking about food, Indian or Chinese?
Sorry, I tried getting John on the phone as well.
Oh, we're doing both at once. Okay, right. Let's just. Is John there? Let's speak to John.
Yeah, John is here. Sorry.
John, I'm going to need John on loudspeaker, and I'm going to need him as close to your microphone as we can possibly go. So, John, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate.
We have been asking James some questions, and a couple of things have come out. Apparently, he says that you are stronger than him, but he is far better looking. Is that true?
Well, I probably wouldn't go that far. But the statement that I said about his legs are a lot stronger than mine.
Oh, so you were listening. Okay. He didn't say you were better looking. I just completely made that up. So, John, how's it been going working out with your brother-in-law? You can be completely honest. I'm a minister too. I can absolve you. Well, no, I can't. That's what Catholics do. But still, how's it been going?
Yeah, the training's been really going really well. Working out with James just makes that extra more like harder. He kind of pushes you when you've got nothing in the tank. He says one more rep, John, one more, you can do it. So it's that extra push. So when you hear someone when they say to you, I wish I had like a gym buddy with me, then I'd be able to push harder, get that extra few reps. That's James. That is definitely James for you.
Everybody,
training's going well for sure.
Everybody needs a wingman. So, just one final question. One thing we've been talking to James about is inner strength and emotional and psychological strength, which you may have picked up. Practical tips, anything he hasn't covered. He talked about having people you can talk to, like a wingman. He talked about going for a walk. Anything else, practically, if you want to have inner psychological strength at this time, practically, are there any things that you would like to stick in there?
Good question. I would say the one that I usually go with is just find something that you find relaxing. So for me, when I'm at the gym, I put some Christian music on. I explained this to one of my friends, and he said, "I've never heard a person going to the gym and playing some Christian music." But I use that as a relaxing moment in actually doing what I want to do at the gym, because I'm doing it for a purpose, and I'm doing it for a reason, to get stronger, to improve to basically improve myself, and it kind of goes hand in hand. So yeah, it's trying to find what you're best at in a sense. It's a tricky one, but I think it comes with time as well. You discover it after, like, you can't really figure out off the bat. You have to just learn and adapt it with time as well. You discover it after, like, you can't really figure out off the bat. You have to just learn and adapt it.
John, we are losing you, so we're going to have to leave it there. But in short, hopefully you picked it up. Basically, every revolution needs a soundtrack. So one of the ways you stay strong is by having great tunes, and that is true because it doesn't matter what you bench press. when they start playing that Rocky Balboa song, baby, you better know they're going to stick an extra 5K on either side. Or they never play Waymaker. But if they did, oh, Lord have mercy, you'll be taking extra weight on each side of that dumbbell, and you will be smashing it out of the ballpark. So, John, we're going to leave you there. I'm just going to ask James some quick fire questions. I've only got one question. Guys, I need some questions. If not, I'm just going to ask the quick fire question, and then I've got a question from a man, Chris Hargreaves. Here's the quick fire question round. James, you're not supposed to think about this. So are you ready? Ready?
Ready.
Indian or Chinese?
Chinese.
This interview ends right now. I mean, what? Are you kidding me? Anyway, whatever.
Just no back.
I've thrown it. Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Night in or night out?
Night in.
Tunes must be played loud or at a level pace, a level volume?
Loud.
They have to be played loud. Windows down, arm on the side, tunes really, really loud. Even if you listen to Radio Free or Classic FM. You heard it here first. Tunes have to be played loud. Here's what Chris, in Indian, your wife said Indian. Sam, you are so right. Here's a couple of
weekend. I had to choose Chinese right now. That's the reason. we found somewhere that actually delivers to Great Eccleston. Yay!
Great Eccleston is if you've not found it on a map,
like middle of nowhere.
Probably doesn't exist on a map. But a great shout out to the people who are in Great Eccleston, all three of you. So here's a couple of questions. Let me just get this here. Chris Hargreaves, how do you keep on target with training without your teammates pushing you on?
This is where your inner strength comes in. I think your purpose, your reason why, your vision, everything kicks back into overdrive when you realize why you're doing what you do. So with the teammates, without the teammates, you got to realize why you're doing it, and that spurs you on.
It's great having a wingman, but guys, it's about individual effort as well. So good question. Nathan Hill, what does James bench? Yeah, bro, what do you bench? Again, this conversation could end because
not just John. So I'm going to say for John first, he's benching 120 kilos for 1 rep. I've seen him bench 100 kilo for 7 or 8 reps. I remember him when he did his first 100 kilo 1 rep, and he's built it up. I can't quite do 100 kilo. I could probably do about 95 kilo for 1 rep. I'd comfortably do 80 kilos for 6, maybe 7 reps. So I still got a bit of way to go, but 100 is my goal.
Good question. I missed the bench press. Jane says, how will Christ be glorified through this?
Through what, this Zoom call specifically, or through?
I assume the world record.
Oh, so, well, I suppose, first of all, through the Zoom call, we do hope that, what we talk about would be, obviously, it's honouring to God, and it would encourage people who are listening, especially if you listen to the whole of the Zoom call. We have talked about lots of different aspects of our relationship with God. Through the world record event, part of it for me is the hope that we would be able to build influence and grow reputation in what we're doing. Part of it is, large part of it is obviously to promote the charity because we're trying to raise money for the charity. But the pastor in me, the Christian in me, hopes that any recognition that we gain, we would be able to better share the gospel through that. I know that people I work with, when they hear that I'm a churchgoer, they're often interested to then ask me church-related questions. I know that if we have the opportunity to feature, on a TV thing or a radio thing or like this sort of thing, to share actually our primary motivation isn't just about, making money or promoting the charity. I hope and pray that people are inspired to learn more about God through Jesus Christ. And, you know, it's a bit of a tenuous link, but the more people get to know me, they know the more about the charity, the more questions will come. I just hope that there'll be an opportunity that I'll be able to share really clearly my hope in Christ, either through church or through a platform created by the World Record event, but in a way that doesn't push people away from the gospel. I don't want people to think that we're weird and that we're just looking to, you know, share like that. We have a lot of people that join us from the council on work placements, and we don't preach the gospel during our Monday morning prayer meetings, but hopefully my life should be preaching the gospel. My example should be that of somebody who's living a Christian life. And I just hope and pray. And a few years ago, actually, we started seeing an influx of people joining church because they wanted to come to the church I was part of. I never invited them, they invited themselves. And I just pray and hope that people would just search that a little bit deeper into what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's not just one reason, there's many reasons, but the biggest reason for me is Christ. Honouring him with my body, doing the best job I can for him. You know, there's all sorts of things.
I know it's not all about the money or anything like that, but we've put James's, the ways in which you can contact him or find out more about him in the description bar, which I think is above or it might be below. And we want to smash the stereotype that Northerners are, how do I say this in a politically correct way? Not as generous as they could be. So final question, really simple, short one, and then I'm going to pray and we will go. Someone's asked, Apple or Microsoft? I've got my own views on this. But there you go, James, Apple or Microsoft?
I love my Apple.
Apple is for pretty boys. That's what I say. And I don't like the way Steve Jobs has created a closed system. Open systems are for me. But hey, why do you like Apple better?
I don't know. I remember I was on a holiday once with some friends. We were camping with them, and they showed me an iPhone, the very first one that came out, and they showed me how to pinch on a map, and I just thought it was amazing. And ever since then, I had the choice of getting a particular phone. I just chose an iPhone 4 back in the day. And ever since then, I've just not bothered to want to transfer all the content and details to a different phone. I've just kept my Apple ID. So
other phones are also available. Guys, I'm going to pray. I'm going to let you go. It's been awesome being with you. If you're not a Christian, that is absolutely fine. If you want to bow your heads and close your eyes, you can keep them open if you want and just have like a moment of meditative reflection. That is cool. That's how we roll anyway. We just want to be easily accessible. And we think if ever there was a time for prayer or reflective, meditative kind of contemplation in the good sense of that word, not weird and getting all freaky, but we think now would be the time. So I'm going to pray for my man James, and then you guys, and then we're going to chip. So Father, I thank you for James and John. I pray a blessing upon what they're doing. I pray that they bring back the gold in these 2 world records, and that they raise loads of money for the charity and bring loads of glory to you. I pray for everybody who's watching. I pray that they might be encouraged, that they might be strengthened, not just physically, but inwardly. I pray this in Jesus' name, and everybody types amen. So guys, Skylar, who's our Zoom tech, you can unmute yourself as well. We're going to split. So later from us, take care. Skylar, do you want to say goodbye?
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye, James.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, James.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Make sure you're smashing the love sign for Skylar and James. Smash that love sign. See you in a bit, guys.
Thank you.